I'm Roy Lee Lindsay with the North Carolina Pork Council, and I want everyone to remember, bacon makes everything better.
Wild Dogs and Hogs for another week of college football talk here based in the Old North State. I'm Mike Waddell along with Jim Collins, and every week we go through 4 quarters of football talk, and we have a halftime show as well this week with former Duke and Ole Miss head coach David Cutcliffe. You want to stay around for that. We went so long in taping that one, we're going to have him back next week as well. The Cut has a lot to talk about, but Jimmy, we have a lot to talk about right here.
We do.
Big week of college football coming up, but as you look back to last week, North Carolina in Kenan Stadium, playing in front of about 24,000 people, they come out slow. Now, I know you were at a 6-year-old's birthday party. That had to be about the same level of football that we were seeing from the Tar Heels. Poor Matt Brown, I really feel for him. I know you hold him in great affection as well. He's running up and down the sidelines like a crazy man, just trying to give some of his 69-year-old passion to these kids who are evidently just thinking, hey, nobody came to see us, so we can just sleepwalk through the Campbell Camels.
Well, it's a tough situation when you've got a very good North Carolina team against a 50-50 Campbell team that's an FCS team, and you expect to win. We talked about last week that you expect to win, you expect to play well. You're looking to score a lot of points and give up very few points, and they did. They slept. They were sleepwalking through the first half. Gave up almost 200 yards of offense on defense and struggled some on offense, but they came out in the second half and dominated the way that they should dominate in a game. And you're right. Early in the game, I was only listening to it on the radio because I was at my granddaughter's 6th birthday party. But I was anxious to hear what was going on. And Coach Brown was the motivator, and I felt for Coach that he had to do that at that time. But that's the way it is this day and time, no doubt about it.
And the fans and the media all get all excited and say, well, they scored 59 points and they beat the heck out of Campbell. You should have beat Campbell. And unfortunately, I know Mac's excited that they got those points and they got the yards and they got the backup sometime. But somewhere in the back of his head, he's got to be thinking, Jimmy, and you take me inside the coach's brain here. You got Duke this week at home, then back-to-back road games against a suddenly resurgent Clemson team, and who knows what the heck's going to be on the field at Carter Finley Stadium on November 25th, but you know they're going to be itching to beat Carolina, so it really doesn't matter. That was a teaching opportunity that now gets kind of swept under the rug, and it's kind of hard, I would think, to keep the Tar Heels' attention talking about their mistakes of the first quarter and a half when they win 59 to whatever.
Well, it is. You have to go through the corrections and make those as you go through the Sunday and the Sunday afternoon and the victory dinner and all the things that go along with that on Sunday. But obviously, for both schools, and I'm one of the few people that have had the opportunity to be in this rivalry on both sides of it. So I know what it's like in Durham, and I know what it's like in Chapel Hill. And I have a great deal of respect for both sides of that rivalry. And there'll be a lot of intensity on both sides this week. And we will anxiously watch the kickoff at 8:00 on Saturday night and follow it very closely. If it takes coaches' motivation this week, then you've got the wrong people playing for you. So with this rivalry, I expect both teams to be ready to play, and I think we'll see a hell of a football game on Saturday night.
Let's move on to our second quarter and talk about the other side of this battle of the Blues. We're talking about Duke and head coach Mike Elko and the Blue Devils coming off a big come-from-behind win over Wake Forest when Jimmy, the Blue Devils didn't lead until the last play of the game. That has to feel good for Mike Elko that he's starting to get some things running on offense that probably, I'm feeling pretty certain, is not going to have the Riley Leonard that we saw on Labor Day weekend again this year. It will be next year before Riley Leonard is back to 100%, if he even plays again this year. For Coach Mike Elko, are you excited about the opportunity based on what you saw late from the Blue Devils against the Deacons?
Oh, there's no doubt, because they were in a rough position at that point in time. They're playing with their third quarterback, a freshman out of Gaffney, South Carolina, that's never taken a snap in the game. They're playing without, obviously, Riley Leonard. Their backup quarterback is out. I don't know if he'll be back. I don't know what the status is of Riley or the Beelan kid at the same time. So they may be playing with their third guy against North Carolina anyway. But the resilience of that Duke team against Wake Forest, and Wake was in a position they needed to win. Now we're riding along at this point in time with Wake. And I'm looking at the ACC right now. Wake is at 4-5 with 3 to play, so they're not bowl eligible right now. So the challenges, and then they play North Carolina State at home. So that was a critical game for Wake Forest against a beat up Duke team at that time. So I'm very impressed with the job that Mike Elko has done, the resilience of that team. That's why I think the Saturday night matchup with North Carolina will be one of the classics of the Duke North Carolina or the North Carolina Duke rivalry. Notice I say it both ways.
It ought to be a lot of fun. North Carolina and Duke Saturday night, 8 o'clock on the ACC network. When we come back on the other side of this halftime timeout, we're going to talk to the former head coach, David Cutcliffe. He's going to give us his perspective on college football in general. He is now an assistant to the commissioner, Greg Sankey, at the Southeastern Conference. So we'll get that perspective for Coach Cut right after this here on the North Carolina Sports Network.
In sports, we talk a lot about impact players who make a positive difference. When it comes to our state's economy, the North Carolina pork industry is a true MVP. Each year, the pork industry plays an important role in supporting rural communities across our state. It contributes more than $10 billion a year to the North Carolina economy and supports more than 44,000 jobs. Learn more about their positive impact at ncpork.org. The North Carolina Pork Council, the foundational partner of the North Carolina Sports Network. Hey folks, David Glenn here for Organize for Success. I am a better person and a more effective business owner for having known and learned from Emily Parks over many years now. Emily's company, Organize for Success, helps multi-passionate business owners and executives bring harmony to all the layers of their lives, from work to side projects, from friends and family to hobbies, community, and beyond. With Emily's help, you too can make every minute matter. She helps you determine what earns your time and how to efficiently accomplish what matters. One of the many things I love about Emily is that she doesn't impose her will on her clients. She listens to them. That way she can better help them cultivate the lives they want to live. You can set up a complimentary call with Emily today by visiting organizeforsuccess.com. That's organize, F-O-R, success.com.
We're talking with David Cutcliffe here on the Old North State Tailgate. Mike Waddell along with Jim Collins. And Coach, I want to go back to that word commitment. And one of the things that I'm seeing right now is that that's really a breakdown systemically all the way through. But just recently, in one of the stories of the year, the University of Colorado, where our buddy Rick George is out there as the director of athletics, he brings in Deion Sanders. And Deion Sanders gets rid of his entire roster and, of course, all of the coaches, brings in new coaches and new players, his Louis Vuitton luggage. And now he's already talking about flipping his offensive line, maybe for good reason, but also changing coaches in midstream. My question to you is, how do you handle that if you're that assistant coach that gets demoted in the season? And then also, How do you handle that if you're a player? Because you're used to hearing a certain chain of command and a cadence, and the game has to go a certain way. Obviously, with Colorado last week, they cut their offensive performance in half. So what was the big story at the start of the year, and Ginny and I talked about it ad nauseum. We're going to have Tim Brewster on here in the coming weeks, and Tim's on the staff out there. But it just seems like this is it's a dangerous precedent, and people think that's the norm now. They don't look at the other folks who are doing it the right way and maybe don't have that instant type success, or maybe even like Dabo taking a step back.
You know, the first thing that frightens me about that commentary are the viewership numbers Colorado gets. So that's telling us the public likes every bit of that drama. I don't know Deion at all. I know people that know him. I think a lot of it's been a ploy. You know, this is how you bang, bang. You know, we got. But again, we're not playing with young people's lives without a real price you're going to personally pay. That's not okay. That's not the design of college athletics. That word commitment is absolutely right. It's not there. And there'll be players that will leave there quickly. But if I were an assistant football coach right now, I wouldn't take a job there, the way that's been dealt out. But you're pointing fingers at the offensive line. You're pointing fingers at coaches. I think his son, I've watched him a little bit, is a terrific, talented quarterback. Wow.
Shadura, right.
Yeah, I think he is really special. And I'm sure that Deion can get those guys motivated and has a lot of energy. But I just don't understand how that is sustainable at all. I would say that, you know, if I were an AD or a president, I'd be quite concerned about the sustainability of what I'm watching. And here's the thing, when you recruit a player, and I know he didn't recruit the ones that were there, but the ones he's got now playing offensive line are there because he wants them there. You don't throw somebody to the curb in college football. That's not the way it's built. So if we recruited them and they're not good enough, whose fault is that? Theirs? And I would always tell parents and players, if you're not playing, my expectations are you to be the best practice player on our team, and there's great value in that. The seeds of victory only grow on practice fields. If you sprinkle them on game fields, they won't grow. So
you're making me feel good about my career, Coach.
Well, I'm gonna say something interesting about Coach right now is that the one thing that whenever we went in a staff meeting and we had an evaluation of our personnel, the one thing that you never wanted to say in those meetings, and rightfully so, is he's not good enough. Well, that's my job as an assistant coach, to make him good enough and find a role for him to succeed at, whether it's a starter, a backup, a good scout team player, or whatever it may be. We recruited him, so it's our job to make him useful in his role on our team, not to say he's not good enough.
Yeah, and that's beautifully said. And the origin of that is, I'll never forget Coach Bryant saying, you know what a bad carpenter will do? He'll complain about his tools. So that fits that perfectly, what you just said.
Coach, you just referenced Paul Bear Bryant, who is your coach at Alabama, and you were getting ready to be a part of a very special event commemorating the 1973 Crimson Tide. Tell us about that and why that's important here in 2023.
Well, it'll always remain important. In our state, in Alabama, there was a lot of national attention during the civil rights movement that was a very negative look at this state. We all remember it that are old enough. It was challenging. I was in it as a youth, saw it. And then this guy named Coach Bryant decided it was time to bring African-American players in out of high school. John Mitchell had come in junior college. Wilbur Jackson came in from Ozark, Alabama, first player by himself. And then here came Sylvester Croom and George Pugh and Mike Washington and Ralph Stokes. And it was a thing of beauty to see how quickly he blended that to team. Mm-hmm. And those were the greatest lessons that I got as a young man. And Ricky Davis is a real close friend who was a DB. And the secondary started getting darker, and Ricky, and David McMakin were the white guys. But how about winning a national championship with a newly blended, integrated team? And that's why I tell those guys all the time how important they are. Sylvester is one of my best friends on earth. We just were together a couple of weeks ago, and just so proud of him and who he is and the coach he was. And let me tell you how good a foresight and what all that meant. Sylvester told me this story. He said, Cut, I wasn't going to coach. Sylvester was a great student. He could have been a dentist, doctor, anything he wanted to be. Coach Bryant called him in and said, Sylvester, you're a Tuscaloosan. It's been great for our community. It's great for college football that we have black players at University of Alabama and all throughout the South now. And he said, but we got a problem. We need really good young black coaches in this business. He said, I need you to coach. Sylvester said, yes, sir. So that started a career that ultimately led him to being the first black head football coach in the Southeastern Conference. And they got it right. The only thing they didn't get right was him having the ability to stay and build a program. But it was a beautiful time. And to know and see how the relationships have strengthened through the years and remained. It wasn't pretend. And the thing I love, what we can't lose in football, is that the best thing anybody can ever say to you is when they come up and say, hey, man, you were the best teammate I ever had. You referenced yourself as not a great player. Well, that's where great lives. I bet you were a great teammate and have had that said to you before. I know Jim Collins was. And I've had it said to me, and that's all I need to know. But the other part of all of that is that in the end, we don't remember the statistics.
No.
We remember how people made us feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what team is. And we can't lose. I mean, we divide a locker room with money, and we're going to lose things that have been around for a long, long time. I cannot believe it's been 50 years since 1973.
Wow. How
did that happen, Jim?
Coach,
I don't know.
I wish I could answer that question. It seems like yesterday that we were just beginning careers and completing those things. Time goes fast now. You better enjoy it while you have the opportunity.
Yeah, and we were treated really well, and we became like this, but we didn't have a lot of money. Nobody was, there may have been some stars under the table stuff,
Right.
But
yeah.
George Pugh and I, we went. He was the first starter out of high school at Alabama at tight end. George and I called and refereed basketball games anywhere and everywhere we could to make a dime. And we would ride together and do that. And people would be sometimes shocked, a white guy and a black guy getting out to referee a ball game. You got to remember now, this is in Alabama in 1972, so, but that's just, those are great memories because of a lot of great people. And that's what I meant about when you choose where you're going as a young person, the outcome of your life may depend upon those people you associate yourself with. And I've always taken that role serious. And I would love to see coaches and players alike be held accountable to do that, that we're all responsible to each other.
Coach, we talked a lot about yesterday. We talked about right now. What's next? What's next in 2024, 25, 26, the expansion of the college football playoff? What is the thing that you're looking at that has you excited, maybe a little bit concerned as well?
Well, I think that if we do realignment the right way, we got a chance to maybe turn some of these things. It excites me that the game can grow and get better. I've never been a fan of the playoff per se getting that big, but I think we're headed to 12 or 16. But in the past, the best regular season in of all sports, it's been college football's regular season because we don't have a tournament or a playoff.
Yeah.
Every game mattered.
Counts.
I don't want to lose that, and I don't think we will. And by realignment, we're going to have a lot of good football teams that could be college football playoff worthy.
Coach, we went so long tonight that we're going to be able to use you for back-to-back weeks. So you'll be the first ever first half, second half guest in the history of the North Carolina Sports Network. So we appreciate you.
Well, you don't know how much fun it is for me to see Jimmy Collins and to visit with him and share memories together. God bless you, man. Y'all take care.
God bless you, Coach. Love you, Coach.
Love y'all. See you later.
Care,
Love you, Jim.
Hey folks, David Glenn right here in Raleigh. One of my favorite restaurants for many years has been The Oak, Scratch Kitchen and Bourbon Bar. It's located on Lake Boone Trail, which happens to be a perfect location for a great meal and beverage if you're on your way to nearby Carter Finley Stadium or perhaps PNC Arena for a concert, Wolfpack or Hurricanes game, or other event. The menu is incredibly tasty and creative. The atmosphere is a lot of fun. The bourbon options are as high-end and varied as you'll find anywhere. The staff is super classy and first-rate, and I've just always loved the people, the food, and the overall vibe there. When I took Carolina Hurricanes owner Tom Dundon to lunch, yes, meaning the billionaire who owns the hockey team, I took him to The Oak. Seriously, it's that good. Learn more or make a reservation by visiting their website, theoakraleigh.com. That's theoakraleigh.com. Special thanks to Nick and Haley and their team for joining the family here at the David Glenn Show and the new North Carolina Sports Network.
Sport Clips is like no other place you've ever gotten your haircut. Sports everywhere, TVs everywhere, playing sports, and guys, smart stylists who know how to give you the haircut you want and the haircut you need. You don't ever need an appointment. Walk-ins are welcome, and you'll walk out feeling like an MVP, guaranteed. Be sure to ask about the MVP experience, as it's something you just can't put into words. Awesome haircut, hot steam towel, invigorating shampoo, neck and shoulder treatment. It takes a haircut and turns it into an event. Sport Clips, a proud partner of the North Carolina Sports Network.
Good job. It's Wild Dogs and Hogs, another week of North Carolina football talk with me, Mike Waddell, and the coach, Jim Collins. And the games just keep on coming. Every now and then you're going to have another swerve come your way, and NC State, they're chugging along there. They're making things happen after getting beat up by Duke. They get another big win, and then all of a sudden their quarterback says, I'm not playing anymore this year. Yeah, so the kid's dad, MJ Morris, who we're talking about with NC State, his dad says that he's not necessarily going into the portal, but Jimmy, I mean, if you basically say this isn't worth my time anymore, I just want to wait and play next year, that's kind of hard to come back into that dynamic, because who knows when you're ever going to quit and say, hey, I'm not going to play anymore because it might hurt my pro prospects.
We are in a sad state at this point in time with the transfer portal. And until we decide that we're going to sign contracts, whether it be a 1-year deal, 2-year deal, 3-year deal, then we have issues like this. And until we change the red shirt rule, then we're going to continue to have these issues.
Explain the red shirt, Will. Explain the red shirt rule, if you could, please, because it used to be that you could only play a certain amount of quarters. Now you can play 16 quarters or 4 games, Jimmy.
4 games, and that's what's happening a lot around the country, and that's exactly what this young man has done. He's played in 4 games, and he's decided that I've played enough. I've got enough video now to prove that I'm a good player. Enough video to prove that I can go into the portal. And I'm not saying he's going in the portal because I don't know. And for me to say that's probably wrong. But if he were to challenge and go into the portal, then I've got enough video to prove that I'm worthy of big NIL money and I'm worthy of a scholarship somewhere else than NC State. I hope he's not doing that. I hope that's not his plan. I hope his plan is that I want to play a full year and be the number 1 quarterback at NC State. I hope, but I don't know that.
That's the 3rd quarter here on Wild Dogs and Hogs. We'll be back with the final quarter, the 4th quarter, right after this.
Hey folks, David Glenn here. I cannot offer a greater endorsement or a bigger compliment than telling you about the folks that I use for important matters in my own life. That's the case with the Lawson Insurance Group, led by 3 actual brothers, Ken Lawson, Miller Lawson, and Michael Lawson. These guys operate a very successful family-oriented business right here in Raleigh, and that office happens to be one of those beautiful blends of NC State grads and UNC grads and graduates, fans and supporters of other colleges and universities all over North Carolina. I know these guys, I trust these guys, and I send these guys my own insurance business and that of my family. The next time you have insurance needs, I hope you'll do the same. The Lawson Insurance Group is known for its commitment to community and its dedication to ensuring that North Carolinians and their businesses are prepared for life's inevitable challenges, with the reminder that as a high street insurance partner, Lawson Insurance Group offers local expertise and support that, combined with High Street's extensive national resources, means more choice and support for you as their client. As we speak, Miller Lawson's helping the Glenn family with our auto insurance needs, and Ken Lawson is the guy to call for your commercial insurance needs. If you Google High Street Lawson Insurance, their website will be the first to pop up.
The original Saltworks has been serving the Wilmington area for over 50 years. Owner Bob Hubbard and his staff create a welcome atmosphere to go along with their home-cooked breakfast and lunch that simply cannot be rivaled anywhere in North Carolina. Eggs, waffles, hot dogs, crab cakes, and the best grits in the state. The original Saltworks, a proud partner of the North Carolina Sports Network.
Wild Dogs and Hogs here on the North Carolina Sports Network. Our old North State tailgate and traveling sports circus will be on the road in Chapel Hill over in front of the University United Methodist Church. Try to say that 3 times quickly. We'll be over there from 5:30 until 7:30. Get you all hyped up. Come over and throw footballs with David Glenn. Pick up some prizes from the North Carolina Port Council, and maybe even talk to us about your thoughts about what's going on right now with the team that you follow. And we'd anticipate that a lot of those teams would be North Carolina and Duke, coming from the fans that we'll see in Chapel Hill come Saturday. Now, both North Carolina and Duke are already bowl eligible, Jimmy, but there are 41 bowl games for 82 out of the 128 football bowl subdivision teams right now in college football in 2023. I remember when you used to have like 12 bowl games. Yeah. Now, again, there are 41. You've been at big bowl games. You've been at little bowl games. I get into a Texas death match like argument with one of my best friends who works in college football and says, bowl games are the greatest thing ever. They're great opportunities for the kids to keep playing. And as a former administrator, I'm sitting here saying, man, going to the Poulan Weed Eater Independence Bowl, no offense, Shreveport. I've been there too, babe. Been there too. But going there was not ideal. And I will tell you, the only time I passed up going to a bowl game as an administrator was at the 2014 Heart of Dallas Bowl. The Heart of Dallas Bowl. Illinois at 6-6 playing 7-5 Skip Holtz coach Louisiana Tech. And I was going to have to go down, spend Christmas by myself in a hotel in Dallas, and then watch that game on December 26th at 11 a.m. I passed. I didn't want the 6-6 goofy ring saying that we made a bowl game because we finished 6-7. We lost. We were not good. Why are there 41 freaking bowl games, Jimmy?
Because TV can make lots and lots of money off bowl games because they can sell the commercials. They can sell the viewing opportunities. ESPN and that backs most of these bowl games. They don't care if there's 100 or 20,000 people in the stands. They make their money off of commercials and the viewing eyes that watch the games. That's why there's 41 bowl games out there. Simple solution to that. And that's why if you're a 6-6 football team, you want to go to a bowl game, whether you actually, and you would know better than I on this, Mike, as an administrator, if you go to the Independence Bowl, can you cover your expenses and still make a little bit of money off of it? Or and basically all the monies go into the league anyway and get divided up. So it really doesn't matter at that point in time. So yeah, I don't know if what I just said made any sense or not, but it does go into the full kitty. And I don't know if fans understand that now. If you get 10 teams in a bowl game, then all the surplus monies all go into the kitty of the league and get divided up at that point in time.
I was the interim director of athletics on December 26th, 2005 at the University of Akron when we played at Ford Field in the Ford Motor City Bowl against Tommy West and the Memphis Tigers.
God. Okay.
Now, I was so excited because a few weeks earlier on December 1st, our Akron Zips had beaten Northern Illinois. That was the AD at the time for the Huskies, was current ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips. And we beat them on a last-second rally down the stretch with Mike Tirico and Kirk Herbstreit on the call. So they weren't quite ready for prime time yet, but neither were we. I'm the AD on my first day, December 1st, 2005. I go to a meeting right there in Ford Field right after the game with Ken Hoffman, who is the executive director of the Ford Motor City Bowl. And George Perlis is sitting over here in the corner. He was on the board, but he was knee-deep in some cutty sark. So he didn't really worry about it. So Ken and I are sitting there. They have a security guard over here literally carrying a deal or no deal aluminum briefcase. And I have my guy who I deputized to be my lieutenant during my interim AD period, who is there with me just to, keep an eye on things. But I'm excited because I think we're going to get the $750,000 check, right, to go play in the Ford Motor City Bowl. Because that's what I said in the paper, $750,000. So I think on my first day as the interim AD, I'm going to present President Luis Proenza with a check for $750,000. Not so fast. Sit down with Hoffman. He puts the paper in front of me and gives me a pen that I got to keep. It was pretty nice. And he says, if you can just go ahead and sign right here, committing to playing in the Ford Motor City Bowl in 25 days. Yeah, we can't wait to be there. You'll explain all the stuff to me? Oh, yeah, we'll get to that in a second, Mike. And then he motions over to the big dude looking like the bailiff off Night Court, comes over, opens up that aluminum suitcase, and I see all these tickets in there, like the old tickets you used to get for concerts, like the individual cut tickets. But they're in stacks. There are 10,000 of them in this briefcase. And I said, what's that for? And he says, well, for every one of those tickets that you sell, you keep 100% of the profits. And I said, 100% of the profits. He said, not just all the money. You sell it for $10 or $100. It doesn't matter. You keep 100% of the revenue. I said, this is great. I said, when do I get my $750,000 check? The guy laughs at me, hands me a check, flips it over, doesn't even show me the amount on it. It was $450,000. And he says, endorse this over to that gentleman over there, whose name is Dave Brown from ESPN. He's their head of college football programming. He's also the guy that schedules every non-conference game in college football, more or less. Okay? So I'm still owed like $300,000. And I said, but Ken, I said, the payout $750. I said, and this was $450. What about the remaining $300,000? And he says, well, there are 10,000 tickets right there, Mike, with a face value of $30. Enjoy it. We had to take 170 people on the bowl trip because every trustee and their grandkids and kids and nannies and all these people wanted to go. We had all these faculty people came out of the woodwork because they wanted to be there. We had every player on our team, every staff member that worked with football, all the assistants, their families, all the administrators, their families, trainers. It was 170 people staying at the hotel in Dearborn that was going to be the staging place for one of the two Super Bowl teams coming up a month and a half later. It was the most expensive trip. It cost us easily $900,000 to go play in a bowl game. That's unbudgeted because you also have to buy every player. You know this. Every player, we won the regular season division in the MAC, so that's $300 we could spend on players.
Yeah.
There was another $350 for winning the MAC championship game and $400 that we could spend on them, and this all stacks. You know, it all stacks, and another $400 we could spend for going to a bowl game. So these kids were getting $1,050 worth of gifts, and there's a ring that's made out of glass and aluminum. They look great, but they're not worth crap. I've got 29 of them downstairs, and 3 of them are real gold. Everything else is garbage. But we're sitting there. I mean, we literally spent $250,000 on awards, Jimmy. So you ask me if they're feasible? Hell no, they're not feasible. Rod McDavis, the president of Ohio University, told me in 2008 that if they would have gone to a bowl game in 2008, the same as they went to in 2007, they would have had to have turned it down because they could not pay for it.
Yeah.
And that was before everybody was playing 12 games. You're playing 12 games now. There's your bowl game. You know, I go back to 8 bowl games, whatever's in the playoff, and just be done with it. But there are far too many traditionalists, of which I am 25% of the time, that think that that's still important. And I just would love to hear your opinion after my epic rant right there.
Well, I agree with you, Mike. I think there's way too many. I think a 6-6 team and a 7-5 team. You know, I think the minimum should be, you know, you need to win 8 games. I just think there's too many bowl games. Even though I do think the kids need to be rewarded, but we're at a point in time now where if you're a program that's playing in the SEC or in the ACC or a Power 5 conference, and you're going to a second tier or a third tier or a fourth tier, which a lot of people don't understand that these bowl games are done in tiers based on how many games you've won and what your schedule and all is that your best players are opting out of those games. So all of a sudden you're going into a game and you're playing a decent opponent, and you don't have all of your weapons to go play the game. So I have very mixed emotions on the value of all these bowl games. Now, with that being said, where we're going to go, whether we go to a 12-team or whether we go to a 16-team playoff down the road, what is going to happen to the bowl games at that point in time? Because now with a semifinal and a final, we're using the bowl games to host those championship games. which the Rose Bowl. I'm going to use the Rose Bowl for example. The Rose Bowl will play the Rose Bowl, and then they'll also host the championship game. So they do a double take on it. But the semifinal games are the bowl games. So we've got a system that is getting ready to go under great scrutiny and going to change a great deal within the next 2 years.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch how this all rolls out and whether or not Dwayne Carter of Duke, Peyton Wilson of NC State, Drake May of North Carolina decide to play in these bowl games, because none of those teams are going to play a bowl game that has any chance to win a championship. They're not going to go to the ACC championship game. Carolina blew that in back-to-back ridiculous losses. But now, you wonder and you just pray for that kid not to get hurt. And how many times do we watch when that kid says, I'm going to play for the love of our team and everything that you and I were built upon, loyalty to your teammates. Coach Cutcliffe, earlier in tonight's episode was talking about, being a good teammate, and that you and I maybe didn't have a lot of talent, but we were good teammates. You're not being a good teammate, by that thinking of our era. If you, just saying, no, I'm not going to play, but if that's my kid, I'll break your damn leg myself before you go out there and play, especially if you're at North Carolina behind that offensive line.
Well, Mike, I have a hard time with this process because and I don't care what team it is, whether it's Duke, North Carolina State, North Carolina, Clemson, whomever it is, if you have an opportunity to go play a game, then in my opinion, it's your responsibility to go play. I don't think there are opt-outs. I think I really believe this. I think opting out is quitting. And for you to quit on your teammates and your team, I think is wrong because you signed up for this responsibility. Now, there was a time, and there was a time when the stats of a bowl game did not count. They did not count in your career. They were bowl game stats.
1,000-yard rushers. Stuck at exactly. 999.
Now they do. All those stats count. All the victories count. All the losses count. All those things. So anytime there's a competition and there's an opportunity to go play, you signed up to do that. And if you opt not to do that, then in my opinion, you quit.
Well, even in college football now, you talk about the bowl games didn't used to count. Now, because of COVID, everybody, despite the fact that the freaking football season was done, the basketball season was done for 90% of the teams.
Yeah.
Okay. But they gave everybody an extra year. You give all those kids an extra year. What didn't stop the high school kids from coming up or the JUCO kids from coming in. So now you just have all of this humanity in there. No wonder people are going in the portal. This is the easiest thing to see of all time. Playing time went down. They didn't. In basketball, you have 5 positions that played 40 minutes a game. That's 200 minutes. They didn't say, okay, we're going to play an extra. Like my kid, when he first started playing football, he played the 5th quarter. There's nothing worse than being a 5th quarter parent, Jimmy, because you show up and you think it's going to be actually after the game.
Yeah.
And it's really before the game. Hand of God, I got thrown out of my kid's first game in 2007 or 2008 because I show up for the 5th quarter after the regular game was over with. I was actually sitting in the parking lot because I didn't want to watch it. And then I go in, it was over. My kid's over there crying. My wife thinks I'm like the worst husband of all time. And I'm going, but I didn't know. And then I get into an argument and I was banned from going to that middle school, which didn't matter because we weren't going to stick around much longer in Cincinnati. But, dude, no. Now you got guys, it's really prevalent in our area in basketball because Baycott at Carolina is going to leave there with almost every damn record because he played a full extra season more than anybody.
Is this his 10th year?
It's something, and it's like it's nothing against the kid.
No, it's really nothing against him.
It's disingenuous for him to have records based off of pick your best 4 years. I don't even go that much.
He's making a lot of he's making a lot of name, image, and likeness money for coming back. So I don't feel bad for him.
Well, and he better, because he's never going to play in the NBA. If Drew Timme from Gonzaga can't play in the NBA, I don't think Orlando Baycott, who has a vertical leap of an Oreo laying flat, is going to go. I mean, it's just not going to happen. But I'm telling you, we've had a hell of a show tonight. We've had one of the legendary coaches in David Cutcliffe. We have you, and we have a really bad Guilford Quaker alumni football player, and the Quakes need to get a win. So all the positive vibes going out there to Brad Davis and the Quakers as they look to wrap up another season in the ODAC. But Jimmy, as always, it's a lot of fun to spend time with you here on Wild Dogs and Hogs. Can't wait to see what happens this weekend in week 11 of college football.
Thanks, Mike. Looking forward to it. And I have to give a shout out to Tony Trisciani and the Elon Phoenix going to Richmond this weekend with a chance to win the CAA. Go Phoenix.
Go Elon. For the coach, Jim Collins, I'm Mike Waddell. Thanks for tuning in to Wild Dogs and Hogs here on the North Carolina Sports Network.